Car is going to be listed for sale. There's somebody out there who's looking for something that's turnkey. They can get in. It's extremely well taken care of. Cars like this are hard to find, so I'm hoping to find a special person who's excited to own it too.
What's going on YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be doing another feature film on one of my friend Bilal's beautiful Java Green M4 behind me. We also have another video that we're going to be filming right after this one. It's actually going to be on the R8 back there. So I'm super excited to be doing these feature films. It's super fun to, showcase other cars in Orlando besides my own, as well as, get out of the BMW world. We're actually going to have an R8 on the channel, the first supercar. So stay tuned. It's going to be a super fun one, as well as next week's video. As always, make sure you guys drop a like, comment down below, subscribe, follow me on Instagram, follow Bilal on Instagram as well. And now let's get into this video. I'm super excited to be shooting both of these cars today. Let's get Bilal on camera and ask him about one, his M4, and then the next video you guys have to stay tuned and we'll talk about his twin turbo V10 R8. I'm gonna welcome my friend Bilal to the channel.
Nice to meet you all. Yeah, pleasure.
What car are we looking at right here?
So we're looking at a Java Green 2020 M4 comp. I don't know exactly how many are out there because there's not a good database on it, but last I checked there was something like 1 of 200.
Oh wow.
Generally, Java Greens out there. How many were made in 2020? No idea.
Yeah.
This one has CCBs, was fully loaded. And when I bought it, I had this vision of I really wanted a GTS.
Yeah.
And I hated the GTS in that kind of dark grayish color, and I wanted it to just stand out. And I wish BMW had done something that was as standoutish as that orange that they made on the E92 GTS that was just gorgeous. So my vision was to try to bring that to life.
Oh yeah.
Effectively what that is, it's a GTS in Java Green.
Imagine you guys, if they made a Java Green GTS M4, this is exactly how it would look like, and it just looks insane. You guys probably saw from the B-roll how meticulously clean the paint is, as well as how aesthetically pleasing all the high quality mods that you see that Bilal has done to his car. When I first met you, actually, this Java M4 was stock, and of course it's done a complete 180 in less than a year or something like that. Yeah. Going back to your BMW roots, you want to go ahead and tell the people about your previous M cars that you've had?
Yeah, so I had the F80 when it first came out in 2014, I think it was. And I loved the car. I used to track it. It was a ton of fun. Prior to that, I had an E46 M3, which I absolutely loved. And then I also had E92 after I sold the F80, which I still have. We can talk about that in another video.
Yeah.
But that's one of my favorite cars. But I've been around the BMW community for a while.
Yeah.
I actually had an X5M that we had built and had a ton of fun of that we eventually sold.
So you've had an E46, an E92, the F series. You also had a G80, right?
Oh, that's right, I forgot. I had a G80 as well.
Yeah, he's had them all.
I didn't love it, to be honest. It was frozen Portimao. We got it when it first came out. Amazing car in terms of how it looked, and I think you can make them look great. To me, the drive is just a little bit boring. Having driven all of the prior generation of M cars, something changed in the G80, right? It felt more like a luxury car than it did an M car. For me, that was why I wanted to go back, and I actually had moved to an M5 CS, which was fun, but that's when this car in stock form came for sale at Brooklyn Auto.
Can you talk about what you love from each platform and then which one is probably your favorite?
Yeah, dude, that's a hard question. They're all so different. I think the E46 to me, size-wise, is the perfect BMW. It's tight, it's maneuverable, it's nimble, it's a ton of fun. I think the E92 is one of the best sounding motors I've ever made, personally, in 6-speed form. Double hump, I know people hate that I said that. It's such a raw experience. It brings everything together. It's a beautiful car, and it's one that I don't think I'll ever sell. And I think the F8X chassis is the nicest looking. Gorgeous vehicle, all around. But I do think it's not as fun to drive as the prior generation. I think it's a little bit more synthetic. Motor doesn't sound as good despite what everybody has tried to do. Maybe if you single turbo it, you can do a bit more, but that's on the crazier side of mods. Otherwise, I think you can't beat how these cars look, but there's something you give.
It sounds like every progression that BMW has made, you lose something you love,
right,
but also something you gain. But
as somebody maybe a little bit older, I feel like more and more people are going to go backwards to go forward.
Yeah.
Right? They're going to want to learn from like why people love to drive cars. We love to drive cars, just not because they're fast, they have an experience. I think people nowadays are looking for that, and some of the newer cars they're losing that, right? You can get on a Tesla and it's awesome, it's quick, it's pretty boring pretty quickly. It's like being on a computer. That's awesome. Everybody wants the fastest GPU, but that's not interesting.
Yeah.
What's really interesting is when you have to work for it.
Yeah. One car we didn't touch on, how was the M5 CS and your ownership with that car?
It was fun. It was fun, don't get me wrong. Like I really enjoyed it. It's quick, it's comfortable, luxurious. But again, same thing. If you want it as a daily, it's not a good daily. Right? Like there's some sacrifices you have to make. And at the end of the day, I didn't need a daily. Yeah. Right. I have a different car for that. We just beat on. So it's got to have an experience. And I personally didn't find it to have something that kept me going back.
Moving into the first question that I ask people when we do these type of feature films, what got you into cars, and then what got you into BMW specifically?
Oddly enough, I was always kind of into cars, like most kids are. But it wasn't until I got my first car in high school that I really fell in love with cars. My first car was a Dodge Avenger. And so not a lot of people will know what that is. You can probably throw a picture of it up, so you'll see what that looks like. It's not the sexiest car on the planet, it's what we could afford. And that really got me into cars because it was a cool design, and I had started modding it. And so it's like you lowered it, you put on a lip and a wing, and all of a sudden it was a really cool looking car. And it was just because mods could do that, right? They could make it personal, and then I fell in love with modding. So then my second car was a Dodge SRT4, the neon, and that's when things I think got a little crazy. We were one of the first in the country in Florida to build the fastest SRT4. So I was the first one to make 500 wheel.
That's sick. What year is this?
This has got to be like early
2000s, right?
Like mid 2000s. Different time. Like everybody else had, MK4 Supras making 800, 1,000 wheel.
Really?
And this yokel with a SRT4 shows up making 500 wheel, and you could keep up. Yeah. Those things were so light.
Yeah. And they sounded amazing.
And they're fast. We, being immature and being a college student, we would go out and run races, try to collect cash doing it. We'd have fun.
Was your family ever into cars as well, or what got you specifically into cars?
My family was never into cars. My dad didn't understand why I liked them. As a matter of fact, he saw that I was modding the Avenger. He was like, what are you doing? He's like explaining all the downsides. We are who we are. So they can appreciate it, but they'll never understand it.
Yeah. Next question, what got you into BMW specifically? When did you move out from Dodge to some other brands and then get into BMW finally?
So ironically, my first car after I started working, the first car I could really afford was that next leap. I bought a C63.
Oh, nice.
And so I love the sound of that. I had one of those. I loved those in red. Nice. It was super cool. And it wasn't like it was a BMW or this. Yeah. I'd actually driven the M4 or the M3 back then. I found the sound better. Yeah. I wasn't as into wanting to mod it. Then, after I sold that car, I really wanted an R35. Didn't have the money to really get into it. Got into an M car. I loved it. The first M car that I got was actually an F80.
Nice.
And then I went backwards.
You said you got introduced to the M4 and you loved it. You took it to the track. And then what made you end up, I guess, getting rid of it?
Yeah, so I took it to Sonoma, Laguna Seca, all that kind of stuff. Nice. And then, I don't know, just got bored. It sounds bad to say that, but like all things in life, you get bored and you want something different. I think we sold that car and I got into an R35.
Nice.
And that was a game-changing experience.
Yeah, so we're going to actually talk about the R35 in this video because Bilal has also owned many cars outside of the BMW space, and so when we go over this next video that you guys will watch probably next week, we're going to talk about all his previous cars that he's owned. I'm excited to hear more about the R35.
Here's what I say to everybody watching. Cars are like food. They're meant to be tasted, they're meant to be experienced, but you got to go to a bunch of different restaurants to experience lots of different meals, and I think
totally
that's kind of what cars do, right? There's some places you always going to come back to.
Yeah.
And those are keepers. That could be whatever you have in the garage you're in love with. Yeah. There may be some things you just want to go try. And it's fun for a while and you just move on to the next one.
His cars right here is just a sign of one, his work ethic. That didn't come from nothing, of course. I can only imagine that. So now we're going to finally go over the build list for Bilal's Java Green M4. You were mentioning before that this is obviously an individual, maybe one of 200, you said?
Somebody on the internet will correct me, but whatever their answer is, it's probably right. It's probably extremely rare. How many are 2020 model year, which is the final year of the build. This car also only has 4,000 miles.
That's crazy.
But this car is rarely driven and it's a bit of a piece of art.
So first question, before we go over the mod list and the build list, what made you want to come back to the F8X platform, and then where did you find this car?
I think first off, it's the color.
The color?
I wanted Java. Java, to me, only looks good on the F80.
True.
And it just, something about the color, it picks up the lines of this car, just like Lime Rock did for the E92.
Yeah.
I think this is that color that really accentuates the F8X.
Absolutely. You guys see it probably from the B-roll as well, but the paint obviously is in amazing condition, and then off the lighting with the shadows, but then you put it in the sun, it changes to a different type of green, and it just looks amazing.
Yeah, I like to say it's emerald green in the sun, and jade in the shade.
In the shade, yeah. And then where did you find this Java Green M4?
I got lucky. I saw it at Brooklyn Auto Sales.
Nice.
So I've got a decent relationship with those folks. I saw it online, and in 48 hours, I had the car.
Nice. And so you were looking, and then have you worked with Brooklyn before this car?
For this car, no.
Yeah.
They also got me the R8 as well.
Yeah.
So
we'll tell you guys about that in the next video.
They're great people. It's always hard to find individuals that want to work with you, figure things out in the best way possible, and they're on that list.
Nice. I've heard good things about them, of course, up in New York.
I will say this, for any of your followers, the entire M value is trapped in spec.
Yeah.
Most people know that, but
what's
crazy about what these guys do is like they know that market, and they're really good at just finding the individuals, the
sought after cars.
The sought after cars.
Yeah.
So if you see something you like, just know there's like probably 100 other people doing the same thing, so just be ready to go.
Yeah. And have you always like been drawn to like having those one-off cars, those special cars, like when it comes to like individual color, paint, low mileage, stuff like that?
No. It's funny. I was never into that.
Yeah.
I'm in finance, and so for me, like a lot of what I start to think about when I buy stuff is how can I get on the other side of this and be okay? Even though most people buy it, it's like, you can buy it, you can own it. I really think about what's the value of the vehicle long term. And so if you really look at the world that way, individual colors, rare specs, that stuff it's always desirable.
Yeah.
And so I try to find the most desirable car.
Yeah.
Not go too crazy.
Yeah.
Knowing that I can always, if and when I get bored,
get your return
somebody
back.
else can enjoy it the same way.
Now we can finally get into the build list. Let's start with the exterior, of course. I like to ask people, what's your favorite mod? And then we can finally get into the exterior stuff.
Oh, that's such a hard question. If I can go to two, I think it's the CS hood, or the GTS hood rather.
Yep.
And the wheels. Classic 300s.
Yep.
And these are in a GTS spec. So they're 19s up front, 20s in the rear. It literally matches what the factory would have done had they rolled it out this way.
Yeah, this is so clean. You guys know we're part of the HRE family, of course, and the classic 300s just look so good on any car. And then Bilal said that his other favorite mod is that paint match GTS hood. This is a game changer mod. It makes the front end so aggressive, and again, going with his GTS build theme, it just ties everything together.
I agree. It's like, otherwise it just feels like another F80. But when you see it this way, it's just unique.
So we can start with the front. What mods did you do? We have a front lip. I see some canards, but you can go ahead and tell the people what you have here.
We've got RSC, their version of the GTS front splitter, plus the lip underneath it. We've got the Autotechnic canards. I&D makes the front toe strap, and then we painted the actual hook Java green. Then you got the I&D blacked out grills. And we've got LCI Icon headlights, which we then sent to Bay Optics to have them custom done.
Nice.
Concept X.
Concept X.
They're in full RGB, so you can change the color to whatever you want.
Nice.
And then they've got the Motorsport Yellow DRLs.
Nice, that's sick.
I actually think they really accentuate the car. Like X just really draws you into the vehicle, and with them turned on, this thing behind you, it looks good.
Just goes with the whole theme that Bilal has going on with the GTS build. I hope the camera is showcasing this paint because it is just so beautiful in different lighting, from that darker to that lighter green. And then moving along to the side, what do we have here?
We've got the M Performance side skirts. We've got the M Performance CF covers for the mirrors. Again, OEM++, not going too crazy. It's really a GTS. The difference is the F8X GTX wing was up here, and it's slightly different.
Yeah.
So we wanted to do something unique. We went with the E92 GTS wing, kind of more of like a Shermer style.
Yeah.
And a track build. We've got the Varus diffuser, full thing.
With the under tray, of course. Yep. Gotta have it.
For our exhaust, we're running a GT House down pipe, GT House mid single, and then upper rear.
Nice. How do you like the sound of that setup?
You guys will hear it.
We'll give you guys some sound clips, of course. And then what made you want to change to the E92 wing versus the F8X style? Yeah.
I think this looks good on a G80. I think it looks good on an E46, an E92, an F8X. This wing, to me, screams BMW. Other wings, they don't follow the body lines the same way.
Yeah.
It's subtle while also just being there.
The risers are not too high. I think it's like the perfect height. I think a wing belongs on an F82. And they also look good on an E92 as well.
Right.
Same with the G82 actually as well.
So we're running KWs. Obviously the wheels, they're classic 300. And then we're running Pilot Sport 4S.
Of course, CCBs you guys can see. Now we can get into the interior and then we'll get into the engine bay. Do you have any mods done here?
Yeah, the GTS steering wheel.
Nice.
And then we've also got the CAN bus OBD2 mount.
Bad Pro gauge on the vent right here. You guys can see that looks sick. You guys can see how clean this car is. The leather literally looks brand new. And miles?
4970.
4970.
Yeah.
That's insane. That is so clean. And now let's get into the engine bay.
Pretty stock. I mean, it's only got a tune.
What tune is it running?
It's running Alpine tune.
Nice.
Then it's got the CSF intercooler.
Nice. So what is that comparable to? Like a stage 2 tune or like stage 1 or
Yeah,
just
stage 1.
Stage
like,
1?
Yeah. So you can tell like we didn't want to go crazy with the actual mods.
Yeah.
I mean, arguably the car's under warranty. Nuts to think about.
That is crazy.
We didn't even put on intakes. The minute they see the intake, they just freak out.
Yeah. And then we'll show you guys the headlights with them on. Yellow DRLs with the RGB Concept X. Those look insane. Let's go ahead and hear the exhaust. Nice, so it sounds like most S55s. Yeah.
On load, I think it sounds better. Like most S55s, you actually got to be driving it for it to sound good. You know, it is what it is.
It is what it is, yeah.
Within reason, I feel like it's the best thing you can do with mixing and matching without going single turbo.
Agreed. And Bilal, before we wrap this video up for the M4, do you have any future plans for the car?
The car is going to be listed for sale. I know it's not something I take lightly, but as you see, it's only got 4,700 miles or whatever the exact number was. So I want somebody else to enjoy it. So we're going to work with Collective Auto to put it up. And hopefully people can check it out, see if they're interested. And if not, we'll put it on, bring a trailer or someplace. And it's such a unique car, such a unique spec.
Yeah.
I really want somebody to enjoy it. There's somebody out there who's looking for something that's turnkey. They can get in. It's extremely well taken care of. It's ceramic coated, PPF'd, everything. You know, cars like this are hard to find. So I'm hoping to find a special person who's excited to own it.
A true enthusiast is gonna want this car, especially the way it's built, as well as how well taken care of it is, as well as the low mileage, of course. But again, Bilal said the M4 is for sale, so I'll be sure to leave email contact down in the description below. And if you or any of your friends are interested in this Java Green GTS M4 build, make sure you guys email that in the description below. But again, Bilal, thank you for coming out. And
happy to do it. Thank you for having us.
And then last question for those that, want to acquire, all the M cars one day like you. Do you have any advice?
Be patient.
Yeah.
Work hard. I mean, that's obvious, but I think everybody nowadays wants success now. It just doesn't happen overnight. Whether you're a YouTuber like Viet, I mean, people don't see the hard work that you put in the background to edit these videos and do all that stuff. People just see the outside. They just see the iceberg. They don't see everything underneath. Just be focused on yourself. Be focused on the bottom of that iceberg. The rest will come.
Again, thank you, Bilal, for having it. One of the most humblest guys that I've met actually in Orlando in the car scene. And again, make sure you guys give him a follow on Instagram. That'll also be linked in the description below. And we'll wrap this one up in the garage.